Part 1. The perfect weapon. The silver walls of the Velanathi command ship gleamed under harsh lights. Ambassador Zixthera stood before the High Council, her blue skin shimmering as she held her perfect posture. She was their best weapon, and everyone in the room knew it. "The humans continue to resist," said Council Leader Vexener, his voice cold as space itself. 12 worlds have fallen to our diplomatic corps, but Earth remains stubborn. Zixthera nodded. She had studied the reports. Every other species had welcomed the Velanathi with open arms once their diplomats arrived. The secret was simple. Velanathi could change their appearance to match what other species found attractive. Combined with their natural pheromones, no one could resist them for long. "Their leader troubles us most," continued Vexener. "Dr. Marcus Chen. He has built their defense strategies. He must be turned to our side." "I understand," Zixthera replied. Her voice was smooth like silk. "What makes you think he will be different from the others?" "Perhaps he will not be," said Councilmember Kieran, leaning forward in her seat. "But if anyone can break him, it is you."
Ow.
"You have never failed us, Zixthera." This was true. In her 300 years of service, Zixthera had seduced kings, presidents, and emperors. She had convinced them to surrender their worlds without firing a single shot. The Velanathi way was clean and efficient. Why destroy planets when you could simply make their leaders love you? "Show me his file," Zixthera said. A holographic image appeared in the center of the room. Dr. Marcus Chen was a human male, his average height with dark hair and serious eyes. He looked unremarkable compared to the powerful beings she usually dealt with. "He is 42 years old," Vexener explained. "A scientist turned diplomat. He has no family, no close relationships. The humans trust him completely." Zixthera studied. "The image? What does he find attractive? Human females with dark hair, intelligent conversation, and ... Kieran paused, checking her notes. "Something called kindness. We are not sure what this means." Zixthera almost smiled. Kindness was just another tool, like beauty or charm. She could pretend to be kind if that was what worked. "When do I begin?" she asked. "The peace talks start in 5 days on Neutral Station 7, Vexener said. "You will pose as our cultural attaché. Get close to him. Learn their military secrets. Make him trust you completely, and then make him surrender his world to us." Zixthera bowed deeply. "It will be done." 5 days later, Zixthera stood in her quarters aboard the transport ship, studying her reflection. She had spent hours perfecting her human appearance. Her blue skin had shifted to a warm brown tone. Her silver hair was now black and fell in gentle waves around her shoulders. Her tall, thin Velanathi frame had become shorter and curvier. She practiced her smile in the mirror. Humans showed their emotions on their faces much more than her people did. She had watched hundreds of hours of human entertainment to learn their expressions. "Perfect," she whispered to herself. The journey to Neutral Station 7 took 2 more days. Zixthera used the time to study everything about human culture. She learned about their strange customs, their art, their food. Most importantly, she learned about their emotions. Humans felt things so strongly. They cried when sad, laughed when happy, and did foolish things when in love. It made them weak, but it also made them predictable. She could use these emotions against them. When the ship docked at the station, Zixthera felt confident. She had never met a species she could not seduce. Humans would be no different. Neutral Station 7 was a massive structure floating in space between human and Velanathi territory. It had been built specifically for these peace talks. The station was divided into sections, one for humans, one for Velanathi, and neutral areas where both species could meet. Zixthera walked through the corridors with perfect grace. Her heels clicked on the metal floors as she made her way to the conference room. Other Velanathi diplomats nodded respectfully as she passed. They all knew who she was and what she could do. The conference room was large and circular with a huge table in the center. Windows showed the stars beyond, making the room feel open and peaceful. Very clever, Zixthera thought. the humans wanted. Everyone to feel comfortable, she was early, as planned. Being first would let her choose the best seat and observe the humans as they entered. She sat down and arranged her papers, playing the part of a busy diplomat. The door opened, and humans began filing in. Zixthera activated her pheromones at a low level, just enough to make herself seem more attractive and trustworthy. She'd done this so many times it was automatic. Then Dr. Marcus Chen walked into the room. Zixthera felt her breath catch in her throat. The holographic image had not done him justice. He moved with quiet confidence, his dark eyes taking in everything around him. When he smiled at his colleagues, his whole face changed, becoming warm and open. But something else happened that had never happened before. Zixthera felt her pheromones fluctuate wildly. Her careful control wavered for just a moment. Steadied herself, but the feeling left her confused. Marcus took a seat directly across from her at the large table. When their eyes met, he gave her a polite nod. "Good morning," he said in perfect Valenathy. "I am Dr. Marcus Chen. You must be Ambassador Zixthera. I've heard much about your diplomatic skills." His voice was calm and professional. There was no sign that her presence affected him at all. Most species could not resist looking at her longer than necessary, but Marcus treated her like any other colleague. "Dr. Chen," she replied, switching to English to show respect for his culture, "the pleasure is mine. I hope these talks will bring peace between our peoples." "That is certainly the goal," Marcus said, opening his briefcase and pulling out thick folders, though I suspect we have very different ideas about what peace should look like. Other diplomats from both sides took their seats around the table. The talks began with formal introductions and pleasantries. Zixthera played her part perfectly, but she kept watching Marcus from the corner of her eye. He was different from her usual targets. When she spoke, he listened carefully, but showed no signs of being charmed. When she laughed at appropriate moments, he smiled politely, but did not seem captivated. When she leaned forward slightly to let her pheromones work better, he simply continued reading his notes as the morning progressed. Zixthera found herself genuinely interested in what Marcus was saying. He spoke about human history, their struggles and achievements, talked about their art and music, their hopes for the future. His passion for his people was clear in every word. "Humans are young compared to the Velanathi," Marcus said during one exchange. "We've only been exploring space for a few centuries. But we learn quickly, and we do not give up easily." "That much is clear," replied the Velanathi lead negotiator. "Your resistance has been ... impressive." Marcus smiled, and again Zixthera felt that strange flutter in her chest. "We prefer to think of it as determination. Humans have a saying, 'Freedom is not free.' We are willing to pay whatever price necessary to remain independent." The talks continued through lunch and into the afternoon. Zixthera tried every subtle technique she knew. She mirrored Marcus's body language, agreed with his points when appropriate, and even touched his arm lightly when passing him documents. Nothing worked. He remained polite, professional, completely unaffected. As the day ended and diplomats began filing out, Zixthera made her move. She approached Marcus as he packed his briefcase. "Dr. Chen," she said, making her voice softer and more personal. "I was wondering if you might join me for dinner. I would love to learn more about human culture." Marcus looked up at her with those serious dark eyes. For a moment, Zixthera thought she saw something flicker in his expression, but then he smiled politely. "That is very kind of you, Ambassador," he said. "But I have reports to write tonight. Perhaps another time." He nodded respectfully and walked away, leaving Zixthera standing alone in the conference room. For the first time in 300 years, Ambassador Zixthera had been turned down. And for the first time in her life, she was not sure what to do next, as she watched Marcus disappear down the corridor. One thought echoed in her mind. This human was going to be much more challenging than she had expected. Part 2. The hunter becomes the hunted. Zixthera stood in her private quarters, staring at herself in the mirror. 3 days had passed since the first meeting, and she was no closer to breaking Dr. Marcus Chen than when she started. She had tried everything. During the second day of talks, she had worn a dress that perfectly showed her figure. Marcus had complimented her on the color and gone back to discussing trade agreements. She had laughed at his jokes, asked intelligent questions about human science, and even accidentally spilled coffee on herself to create a moment of connection. Marcus had handed her napkins and asked if she needed medical attention. "What is wrong with this human?" she muttered to her reflection. Her communication device beeped. Message from the High Council appeared on the screen. Ambassador Zixthera, Council Leader Vexeners, cold voice filled the room. Your progress? Reports have been ... vague. We expect results soon. Zixthera felt a chill run down her spine. The Velanathi did not tolerate failure. She had seen what happened to diplomats who could not complete their missions. They were sent to mining colonies, on distant worlds, forgotten and alone. I understand, Council Leader, she replied. The human is more resistant than expected, but I will break through his defenses. See that you do. Time is running short. The communication ended, leaving Zixthera alone with her thoughts. She needed a new strategy. Something was protecting Marcus from her influence, but what? She spent the evening researching everything she could find about human biology and psychology. Most of what she found was basic information she already knew. Humans were emotional, social creatures who formed strong bonds with others. They were attracted to beauty, intelligence, and kindness. All things she had been showing Marcus for days. Then, she found something interesting buried in a medical report. Human scientists had been working on drugs to resist alien mental influence. The project was classified, but Zixthera was very good at finding hidden information. Cognitive resistance enhancers, she read aloud. Designed to block pheromone-based manipulation and telepathic intrusion. So that was it. Marcus was taking drugs to resist her abilities. No wonder her pheromones had no effect on him. But this information also gave her hope. If he needed drugs to resist her, that meant he could still be influenced. She just needed to find another way. The next morning, Zixthera entered the conference room with a new plan. Instead of trying to seduce Marcus, she would engage him intellectually. She would make him see her as an equal, someone worth talking to beyond the formal negotiations. Good morning, Dr. Chen, she said as she took her seat. Good morning, Ambassador, Marcus replied, not looking up from his papers. I was reading about human space exploration last night, Zixthera said, keeping her voice casual. Your species achieved faster than light travel remarkably quickly after discovering the technology existed. Marcus looked up, a spark of interest. In his eyes, you were reading about our history. I find it fascinating, Zixthera said, and realized she was not lying. Most species take centuries to develop FTL drive after first contact with other civilizations. Humans did it in 30 years. We had good motivation, Marcus said with a slight smile. When you learn you're not alone in the universe, you want to see what else is out there. Is that why you became a scientist? To explore the unknown? For the first time since meeting him, Marcus seemed to truly focus on her. His dark eyes studied her face as if seeing her for the first time, partly, he said, but also to protect what we've built. Humans have fought hard for our freedom and independence. I want to make sure we keep it. The formal talks began before Zixthera could respond, but she felt a small victory. She had gotten Marcus to engage with her personally, even if only for a moment. Throughout the day, she continued her new strategy. Instead of trying to charm him, she asked thoughtful questions about human culture and science. She shared stories about Velanathi history that were not classified. Slowly, she began to see Marcus relax around her. During a break in the afternoon, Marcus approached her table. Ambassador, he said. I wanted to apologize for being so formal these past few days. These negotiations are important, and I may have been too focused on business. Zixthera felt her heart skip a beat. Was he finally showing interest in her? Please, call me Zix, she said. And there is no need to apologize. You are protecting your people. I respect that. Thank you for understanding. Marcus paused, seeming to wrestle with something. Would you be interested in taking a tour of the station's observation deck after today's session? The view of the nebula is quite beautiful. Zixthera kept her expression calm, but inside she felt triumphant. I would love that. That evening, They walked together through the station's upper levels to the observation deck. The space was dimly lit, with massive windows showing the colorful gases of a nearby nebula. Stars sparkled like jewels against the cosmic clouds. "It's beautiful," Zixthera said, and meant it. Her people rarely took time to appreciate natural beauty. "I never get tired of seeing sights like this," Marcus said, standing beside her at the window. "Space is so vast and amazing. It makes our conflicts seem small in comparison." "Do you think our peoples will find peace?" Zixthera asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I hope so," he said finally. "But peace has to be real. It has to be something both sides actually want, not something forced on one by the other." Zixthera felt an uncomfortable twist in her stomach. Marcus was talking about exactly what she was trying to do to him. "What if... double quotes," she began, then stopped. What was she doing? She was supposed to be manipulating him, not having real conversations. "What if what?" Marcus asked, turning to look at her. Zixthera met his eyes and felt that strange flutter again. Up close, she could see gold flecks in his dark brown eyes. His face was kind but strong, with small lines around his eyes that showed he smiled often. What if one side could be convinced that cooperation was better than independence? She asked carefully. Marcus studied her for a long moment. "Are you asking as a diplomat, or as someone genuinely curious?" The question caught Zixthera off guard. No one had ever asked her to separate her personal thoughts from her mission before. "I'm not sure," she said honestly. "Well," Marcus said, "as someone who studies human behavior, I can tell you that we don't respond well to being convinced of things we don't already believe. We're stubborn that way. But we do respond to being shown new possibilities." "What do you mean?" "Instead of trying to convince someone that your way is better, show them how working together creates something neither side could achieve alone." As Marcus spoke, Zixthera realized something troubling. She was no longer thinking about her mission. She was thinking about what Marcus was saying, really considering his words. When had that started happening? They spent another hour talking about philosophy, science, and their different cultures. Marcus was intelligent and funny, with a dry sense of humor that made Zixthera laugh without meaning to. He asked her about her life, her interests, her thoughts on various topics. No one had ever asked Zixthera what she thought about anything except how to complete her missions. When they finally parted ways for the evening, Marcus smiled at her in a way that made her feel warm inside. "Thank you for tonight, Zix," he said. "I enjoyed talking with you." "So did I," she replied, and realized it was completely true. Back in her quarters, Zixthera sat on her bed and tried to understand what was happening to her. She was supposed to be seducing Marcus, but instead, she found herself genuinely liking him. He was nothing like the weak, easily manipulated leaders she usually dealt with. Marcus was strong in ways she had never encountered. He did not try to dominate others or prove his power. Instead, he listened, thought carefully, and spoke with quiet confidence. He treated her like an equal, not like a prize to be won or a tool to be used. For the first time in her 300 years of life, Zixthera was confused about her own feelings. Was this what other species called attraction? Not just physical desire, but genuine interest in another person as an individual. She tried to push the thoughts away and focus on her mission. But as she lay in bed that night, instead of planning her next move against Marcus, she found herself thinking about the way he had smiled at her under the starlight. Something was happening to her. Something her people had no words for. And for the first time since arriving at the station, Zixthera was not sure who was hunting whom. Part 3. When worlds collide, 2 weeks had passed since that first evening on the observation deck. Zixthera found herself looking forward to her daily conversations with Marcus more than she had ever looked forward to anything in her life. What had started as diplomatic small talk had grown into something deeper. They discussed science, philosophy, art, and dreams. Marcus told her about his childhood on Earth, about watching the stars and wondering what was out there. Zixthera found herself sharing stories about her own past that she had never told anyone. Peace talks were making slow progress, but something else was happening between the two of them. Something that scared and excited Zixthera in equal measure. "You seem different today," Marcus said as they walked through the station's gardens. After another long day of negotiations, the artificial plants could not compare to real ones, but they provided a peaceful place to talk. Different how? Zixthera asked, though she knew exactly what he meant. She had been distracted all day, thinking about him instead of focusing on her mission. Quieter, like you have something on your mind. Zixthera stopped walking and turned to face him. Marcus looked concerned, his dark eyes studying her face with genuine care. When was the last time anyone had worried about her feelings? Marcus, she said, then paused. What was she doing? She was supposed to be manipulating him, not sharing her real thoughts? What is it? He asked gently. Was not who you think I am? She asked carefully. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it was a sad smile. I already know you're not who you pretend to be, he said. Zixthera felt her blood turn cold. What do you mean? I've known from the beginning that you're not just a cultural attach, Marcus said. Your knowledge of human military capabilities is too detailed. Your questions are too specific. You're here to gather intelligence. You knew? Zixthera could barely whisper the words. I suspected, but I wanted to see what you would do. Marcus stepped closer to her. The question is, are you still just doing your job, or has something changed? Zixthera stared at him in shock. All this time she thought she was playing him. But he had been aware of her deception from the start, yet he had still spent time with her, talked with her, treated her with kindness. Why? She asked. Why did you let me get close to you if you knew? Because I wanted to understand you, Marcus said. And because... double quotes, seeming to struggle with his words. Because despite everything, I find myself caring about you. The words hit Zixthera like a physical blow. He cared about her. Not the fake personality she had created, but her. Even knowing she was deceiving him, he had developed feelings for her. She began, but he held up a hand. You don't have to say anything right now, he said. I know this is complicated for both of us. That night, Zixthera paced her quarters like a caged animal. Her mission was clear: seduce Marcus and get him to surrender Earth. But everything had changed. She was no longer pretending to care about him. Her feelings were real. For the first time in her life, Zixthera was experiencing what humans called love. The realization terrified her. Velanathi did not love. They felt attraction, desire, even affection, but not this consuming need to protect and be with another person. Love was considered a weakness, a flaw in logic that led to poor decisions. But as she thought about Marcus's smile, his laugh, the way he listened to her thoughts with genuine interest, Zixthera realized she did not care what her people thought. She loved him, and that love was the strongest thing she had ever felt. Her communication device beeped.
Another message from the High Council?
Ambassador Zixthera, came Vexenor's cold voice. Your reports continue to lack substance. We are beginning to question your commitment to this mission. Council leader Zixthera replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The human is proving more difficult than anticipated. I am making progress, but it requires time. Time we may not have. Our military commanders grow impatient. If diplomatic solutions fail, we may be forced to consider other options. Other options meant war. Zixthera felt sick at the thought of Velanathi's ships attacking Earth, Marcus and his people dying because she had failed. Give me more time. She said, I will succeed. See that you do. You have 1 week to show results, or we will recall you and begin military preparations. The communication ended, leaving Zixthera alone with her impossible choice. Complete her mission and betray the man she loved, or fail and watch his world burn. The next day, Zixthera could barely concentrate during the negotiations. Every time she looked at Marcus, she felt her heart breaking a little more. He seemed to sense her distress and sent her concerned glances throughout the morning. During the lunch break, he approached her table. Would you like to take a walk? He asked quietly. Zixthera nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They walked, in silence, to their usual spot on the observation deck. The nebula outside seemed less beautiful today, its colors muted by Zixthera's dark mood. Something is wrong, Marcus said. It was not a question. Yes. Zixthera admitted. Can you tell me what it is? Zixthera looked at him, memorizing every detail of his face. His kind eyes, the small scar on his chin from a childhood accident, the way his hair fell across his forehead when he was worried. Marcus, she said, what would you do if someone you cared about was in danger? But saving them meant betraying everything you believed in. Marcus studied her carefully. Is this a hypothetical question? No. He was quiet for a long time, looking out at the stars. Finally, he spoke. I think, he said slowly, that sometimes the right choice is not the easy choice. And sometimes protecting the people we love requires us to risk everything, even if it means others might suffer. That depends on what kind of suffering we're talking about, whether there might be another way, a third option that saves everyone. Zixthera felt tears forming in her eyes, another human emotion she had never experienced before. What if there's no third option? Psst. Marcus turned to face her fully. Zix, whatever's happening, you don't have to face it alone. If you're in trouble, I want to help. The kindness in his voice broke something inside her. Before she could stop herself, Zixthera stepped forward and kissed him. For a moment, Marcus was still with surprise. Then his arms came around her, and he kissed her back with a passion that made her head spin. All her careful control disappeared. Our pheromones spiked wildly, but this time it did not matter. The drugs Marcus was taking could not stop genuine emotion. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Zix, Marcus whispered. I don't say anything, she said, pressing her finger to his lips. Not yet. That night they met. In Zixthera's quarters. What happened between them was not part of any mission or plan. It was two people who had found something precious in each other, knowing their time might be short. Afterwards, as they lay together in the dim light of her room, Marcus traced patterns on her shoulder with his finger. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. What? I stopped taking the resistance drugs 3 days ago. Zixthera raised her head to look at him. Why? Because I wanted to know if what I was feeling was real or just your influence. Smiled and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Turns out it was real. Zixthera felt her heart swell with an emotion so strong it was almost painful. He had made himself vulnerable to her abilities because he trusted what was between them. Marcus, she began, but he shook his head. I know you're going to tell me something that will change everything, he said. I can see it in your eyes. Before you do, I want you to know that whatever happens, these past weeks with you have been the best of my life. Zixthera closed her eyes, fighting back tears. She had to tell him the truth. About her mission, about what the Velanathi were really planning, about the choice she was facing. But before she could speak, an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red, and an automated voice announced, All personnel report to designated emergency stations. This is not a drill. Marcus was already reaching for his clothes. Something's wrong, he said, as they dressed quickly. Zixthera's communication device activated with an urgent message. All Velanathi diplomatic personnel return to your ships immediately, came a voice she did not recognize. We are leaving the station. What's happening? Marcus asked, seeing her pale face. Before Zixthera could answer, another announcement echoed through the station. Attention all personnel. Long-range sensors have detected a large fleet approaching from Velanathi. Space. Estimated time of arrival, 6 hours. Marcus stared at her, understanding dawning on his face. They're coming to attack. Zixthera nodded, unable to speak. The week was up. The High Council had decided to end the diplomatic mission and begin their conquest of Earth. I have to go, she whispered. No, Marcus said firmly, grabbing her arm. You don't have to do anything. Stay here with me. You don't understand, Zix? Ara said, tears flowing freely now. I don't return to my ship, they'll know I've betrayed them. They'll assume you've turned me against my own people. Haven't you? Marcus asked quietly. Zixthera looked at him, this human who had shown her what love meant, who had trusted her even knowing she was deceiving him. In a few hours, Velanathi's ships would arrive to destroy everything he cared about, unless she found a way to stop them. Part 4. The Price of Love. The Velanathi transport shuttle felt like a prison as Zixera sat in the passenger section. Her hands clenched in her lap. Around her, other diplomats whispered nervously about the approaching fleet. None of them knew what was really happening. Only she understood that their peaceful mission had become a prelude to war. Commander Vekvar, the shuttle's pilot, turned to address the passengers. We will reach the command ship in 20 minutes. Council Leader Vexenor wishes to speak with Ambassador Zixthera immediately upon arrival. Zixthera nodded, though her stomach twisted with fear. In her bag, hidden beneath diplomatic documents, was a datapad containing everything she had learned about Velanathi military plans, ship designs, and tactical strategies. Information that could save Earth if she could somehow get it to Marcus. But first, she had to survive the next few hours. The command ship Velthes was massive, stretching 4 kilometers through space. As their shuttle docked, Zixthera could see hundreds of other ships taking formation around it. The entire Third Fleet had come to conquer Earth. Guards escorted her through the ship's corridors to the command center. The walls hummed with energy and the air smelled of ozone and metal. Everything was clean, efficient, and cold, so different from the warm. Lived-in spaces of the human station, Council Leader Vexenor stood at the center of the command bridge, his tall form imposing against the backdrop of tactical displays. His silver skin gleamed under the harsh lights, and his black eyes showed no emotion as Zixthera approached. "Ambassador," he said without looking at her, "your mission has been a failure, Council Leader." "I was making progress." Silence. Vexenor turned to face her, and Zixthera saw something that chilled her blood. Suspicion. "Your reports became increasingly vague over the past weeks. Your behavior has been ... unusual." "I don't understand," Zixthera said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Don't you?" Vexenor stepped closer. "Our surveillance detected unusual pheromone fluctuations during your meetings with the human. Patterns consistent with genuine emotional attachment." Zixthera felt her heart racing. They had been watching her the entire time. "Emotional attachment is impossible for our species," she said carefully. "Perhaps your equipment malfunctioned. Perhaps." Vexenor's eyes narrowed. "But I think not. You see, Ambassador, we have discovered something interesting about human Velanathi interactions, something our scientists have been studying in secret." A holographic display appeared between them, showing complex biological data. Zixthera stared at the information, her mind racing to understand what she was seeing. "It appears," Vexenor continued, "that our species and theirs are more compatible than we ever imagined. Compatible in ways that could produce ... offspring." The word hit Zixthera like a physical blow. She thought about the strange sensation she had been feeling, the changes in her body that she had attributed to stress. This discovery changes our plans considerably, Vexenor said. "Velanathi and humans can interbreed, then we do not need to conquer them. We can absorb them. Slowly, over generations, we can replace their pure human population with hybrid children who will be loyal to us." "That's monstrous," Zixthera whispered. "That's evolution," Vexenor corrected. "And you, my dear Ambassador, are going to help us test this theory." 2 guards stepped forward, but Zixthera was already moving. Years of diplomatic training had not made her soft. She was still a Velanathi warrior when necessary. She spun away from the first guard's reach and struck the second in the throat with her elbow. But there were too many of them. Within seconds, she was surrounded and restrained. "Take her to the medical bay," Vexenor ordered. "I want a full biological scan. She's been intimate with the human. We need to know immediately." As the guards dragged her away, Zixthera's mind raced. If they discovered she was pregnant, and she was becoming more certain that she was, they would use her child as the first test subject in their horrific plan. They would turn her baby into a weapon against humanity. She had to escape. But more than that, she had to warn Marcus and give him the military intelligence that could save Earth. Back on Neutral Station 7. Marcus stood in the emergency command center that had been hastily set up in the station's main conference room. Human officers worked frantically at portable computers, analyzing the approaching Velanathi fleet. "Sir," called Lieutenant Rodriguez. From her workstation, We've completed our scan of the enemy formation. 237 ships, including 15 heavy cruisers and 5 dreadnoughts. Marcus studied the tactical display, his face grim. The human defense fleet numbered only 80 ships, and most of those were smaller frigates and destroyers. In a straight fight, Earth's forces would be destroyed. "What about the station's defenses?" he asked. "Minimal," replied Commander Walsh. "This was built as a diplomatic facility, not a fortress. We have basic shields and some point defense weapons, but nothing that could stop a fleet that size." Marcus nodded, though his heart was breaking. Somewhere out there, Zixthera was aboard one of those enemy ships. Was she safe? Had they discovered her feelings for him? Or was she being punished for caring about a human? "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez said urgently, "we're receiving a transmission from the Velanathi fleet. Audio only. Put it through." Council Leader Vexener's cold voice filled the room. "Humans of Earth, this is your final opportunity to surrender. Lay down your weapons and submit to Velanathi. Rule, and your people will be treated with mercy." Marcus activated the reply channel. "This is Dr. Marcus Chen, speaking for Earth's government. We reject your ultimatum. Humanity will never surrender its freedom." Dr. Chen, Vexener's voice, carried a note of cruel amusement. "How noble. But before you commit your species to destruction, perhaps you would like to know what has become of Ambassador Zixthera." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "What about her?" "She has been found guilty of treason against the Velanathi Confederacy. The penalty is death, to be carried out immediately unless Earth surrenders within the next hour." The communication ended. Leaving the command center in stunned silence, Marcus stared at the tactical display, his mind reeling. They were going to kill Zixthera unless he surrendered Earth, but if he surrendered, billions of humans would lose. "Their freedom forever, sir?" Commander Walsh asked quietly. "What are your orders?" Marcus closed his eyes, remembering Zixthera's words from days earlier. What would you do if someone you cared about was in danger? But saving them meant betraying everything you believed in? Now he understood what she had been facing. The impossible choice between love and duty, between one person and an entire world. "We prepare for battle," he said finally. "Alert all Earth Defense Forces. Tell them we're buying time for evacuation." "Of the inner colonies? And the ambassador?" Lieutenant Rodriguez asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. If Zixthera is really going to die, then she'll die knowing that her sacrifice meant something, that Earth remained free. But even as he spoke the words, Marcus was thinking frantically. There had to be another way. Some plan that could save both Zixthera, humanity. He just had to find it before time ran out, in the medical bay of the Velthes. Zixthera lay strapped to an examination table while Velanathi doctors ran their scans. The results would be ready soon, and then her fate would be sealed. Dr. Cathara, the chief medical officer, studied the readings with professional interest. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The biological integration is far more advanced than our theories predicted." "What does that mean?" Zixthera demanded. "It means, my dear," said Vexener as he entered the medical bay, "that you are indeed carrying a hybrid child, the first of what will eventually be millions." Zixthera felt sick. "I won't let you use my baby for your experiments. You won't have a choice." Vexener smiled coldly. "But first, we're going to use you for something else." "Going to help us break Dr. Chen's resolve?" "Never." "Oh, but you will. You see, we're going to broadcast your execution to the human fleet. When Dr. Chen sees the woman he loves die because of his stubbornness, he'll surrender to save the rest of his people." "You don't know, Marcus," Zixthera said fiercely. "He's stronger than you think. Perhaps humans are such emotional creatures. Their feelings make them weak." Vexener turned to the guards. "Prepare her for broadcast. We execute her in 30 minutes. As they dragged her from the medical bay, Zixthera felt something she had never experienced before, not just fear for herself, but desperate concern for the tiny life growing inside her. Itcha'ayo would never be born, would never have the chance to bridge the gap between their species, unless she could find a way to escape. But as the guards locked her in a holding cell to await execution, Escape seemed impossible. The only thing she could do was hope that somehow Marcus would find a way to win this war and that their child's sacrifice would not be in vain. Part 5. A new Hepesixthera sat in her cell, counting the minutes until her execution. 23 minutes left. She placed her hand on her stomach, feeling the tiny life growing inside her. Her child would die with her, never knowing the universe. Beyond these cold metal walls. But then she heard something that made her heart skip. A small explosion, distant but definitely real. Then another, shouting in the corridors outside. The cell door burst open, but it was not the guards coming. For her, Dr. Cathara, the medical officer, stumbled inside, her silver skin pale with fear. "Ambassador," she gasped, "something is happening. The humans, there, attacking the fleet." What? Zixthera stood up quickly. Impossible but true. Small ships, moving too fast for our weapons to track. They're targeting our communication arrays and weapon systems. Cathara looked terrified. How are they doing this? Before Zixthara could answer, another voice came from the doorway, because humans never give up. Both Velanathi women turned, to see Marcus Chen standing there wearing a human spacesuit and holding a weapon. Behind him were 2 human soldiers. Marcus. Zixthora could not believe her eyes. "How did you get here?" "Very carefully," he said with a grin. "And with help from someone who gave us detailed plans of Velanathi ship designs." Zixthera realized he meant the data she had hidden on her personal device. Sphera, he had found it and used it against the fleet. "We need to go," Marcus said urgently. "This ship won't be safe much longer." Dr. Cathara stepped back, raising her hands. "I will not stop you," she said quietly. "What the Council is planning, it is wrong. Using children as weapons. This is not what the Velanathi should be." Zixthera stared at her in surprise. "You disagree with the mission?" "Many of us do," Cathara said. "We became diplomats to bring peace, not to enslave other species. But the Council does not listen to dissent." "Come with us," Marcus said immediately. "Help us end this war." Cathara looked shocked. "You would trust me? After everything my people have done?" "Zixthara trusted me," Marcus replied, "even when she was supposed to be my enemy." Sometimes trust is the only way to break the cycle. As they ran through the corridors of the command ship, explosions rocked the vessel around them. Marcus led them toward the docking bay where a small human ship waited, but their path was blocked by Velanathi guards. "Surrender immediately," commanded the lead guard, raising his weapon. But before anyone could fire, Zixthera stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Zixthera," she said in a voice that carried absolute authority. "These humans are under my diplomatic protection." The guard hesitated, confused by her claim. "Ambassador, you are supposed to be executed. The execution has been delayed," Zixthera lied smoothly. "Council Leader Vexener wishes to use me for prisoner exchange negotiations. These humans are my escorts." It was a desperate bluff, but it worked. The guards stepped aside, allowing them to pass. "Impressive," Marcus whispered as they hurried toward the docking bay. "I learned from the best," Zixthera replied, thinking. Of all the times Marcus had maneuvered through difficult negotiations, the docking bay was in chaos. Velanathi crew members ran back and forth, trying to coordinate damage control while their ship shuddered under human attacks. Marcus's small vessel sat near the far wall, its engines already warming up, but as they approached the ship, Council Leader Vexener appeared with a squad of elite guards. "Going somewhere, Ambassador?" His cold voice cut through the noise. Marcus stepped protectively in front of Zixthera, his weapon raised. "Let her go, Vexener. This war doesn't have to continue, doesn't it?" Vexener smiled cruelly. "You humans are so naive. You think this is about conquest, but it's really about survival. Our species is dying, Dr. Chen. Our birth rates have been falling for centuries. We need new genetic material to survive." "So you decided to steal it?" Marcus said angrily. "Decided to acquire it through the most efficient means possible." Vexener's eyes fixed on Zixthera. "She is carrying the key to our future." "The baby is not a tool," Zixthera said fiercely. "It's a person. It's a hybrid, Vexener corrected. The first of many that will ensure both our species survive.
Oh, what if there was another way?
Dr. Cathera spoke up suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. What if instead of conquest, we offered cooperation? Vexener's expression turned dangerous. Explain. The medical data shows that human Velanathi compatibility is remarkable, Cathara continued. But forced breeding would create weak, unstable offspring. However, children born from genuine partnerships, from love, she looked at Zixthera and Marcus, they would be stronger, healthier, better for both species. You suggest we become equals with these primitives? Vexener spat. I suggest we become partners, Cathera replied calmly. Trade knowledge, share technology, allow natural relationships to develop. Some humans might choose Velanathi mates, and some Velanathi might choose human ones. Their children would be the bridge between our peoples. Marcus lowered his weapon slightly. You're talking about alliance instead of conquest. About evolution through choice, not force, Cathera said. For a moment, the docking bay was quiet, except for the sound of distant explosions. Zixthera could see Vexener, considering the idea, weighing it against his original plan. Then his face hardened. Impossible. Humans are too inferior to be our equals. No, said a new voice. They're not. Everyone turned to see Captain Therix, one of the fleet commanders, approaching with several other Velanathi officers.
Captain.
Vexener said sharply. You should be coordinating our defense. What defense? Therix replied. Half our ships are disabled. The humans are outmaneuvering us at every turn, using tactics we never imagined. They're not inferior, Council Leader. They're different. Maybe that difference is exactly what we need. More Velanathi officers were gathering now, and Zixthara could see doubt in their faces. Doubt about the mission, about their leaders, about the war itself. You see, Vexener, Marcus said quietly, that's what you never understood about humans. We don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for the people we love, for the ideas we believe in. And sometimes we fight to protect our enemies from themselves. As if to prove his point, Marcus did something that shocked everyone in the bay. He handed his weapon to Captain Therix. I'm surrendering, he said, not to save Earth. Surrendering to save both our peoples from a war that will destroy us all. Marcus, no, Zixthera gasped. Trust me, he said softly, then raised his voice. I propose a challenge to Council Leader Vexener. Single combat to determine the fate of both species. If he wins, Earth surrenders. If I win, the Velanathi fleet withdraws, and we negotiate a real peace treaty. Vexener laughed harshly. You think you can defeat me in combat, human? I think I can show you what real strength looks like, Marcus replied. But before Vexener could respond, Zixthera stepped between them. No, she said firmly. There will be no more fighting. She turned to address not just Vexener, but all the Velanathi gathered in the bay. When she spoke, her voice carried across the space with commanding presence. I am Ambassador Zixthera, and I carry the first hybrid child of our species. This child was not created through conquest or manipulation. It was created through love. Through to people from different worlds who found something beautiful together. She placed her hand on her stomach, and her voice grew stronger. This baby will not be raised as a weapon or a tool. It will be raised as a symbol of what we can become when we choose cooperation over conquest. When we choose to build bridges instead of walls. Around the bay, Velanathi officers began nodding. Some of them stepped forward, showing their support. Now, if anyone tries to harm this child, or its parents, or the people of Earth, Zixthera continued, they will face something no Velanathi has ever had to deal with before. They will face a mother protecting her young. The threat in her voice was unmistakable. Vexener took a step back. Finally understanding that he had lost control of the situation, Captain Therix handed Marcus back his weapon and turned to his fellow officers. I call for a vote of no confidence in Council Leader Vexener, he announced. All in favor of ending this war and beginning real negotiations. One by one, hands rose throughout the bay. Soon, more than half the officers present had voted against Vexenor's war. "This is mutiny," Vexenor snarled. "This is evolution," Dr. Cathera corrected. "This is what happens when a species chooses to grow instead of stagnate." 6 months later, Zixthera sat in a garden on Earth, holding her newborn daughter. The child was beautiful, with her mother's silver hair, but her father's dark eyes. She would grow up in a world where humans and Velenathi were learning to work together. Marcus sat beside them, gently stroking the baby's tiny hand. "What should we call her?" he asked. "Humans have a word," Zixtara said softly. "Hope, and in Velenathi, Velzara. It means new beginning." "Hope Velzara Chen," Marcus said, trying out the full name. "I like it." Around them, the garden was full of both species working together. Human scientists learned from Velenathi medical knowledge. Velenathi engineers marveled at human creativity and innovation. The partnership was not perfect, but it was real.
Aid.
"Do you think she'll have a good life?" Zixthera asked, looking down. At their daughter. "Think she'll have something even better," Marcus replied. "She'll have a life where anything is possible, where love matters more than species."